The morning of January 29, 1863, dawned clear and bitterly cold in southern Idaho. A light dusting of snow covered the ground, reflecting the pale winter sun. The air hung heavy with frost, and a thin layer of ice clung to the banks of the Bear River. The silence of the early morning was broken only by the gentle murmur of the river and the soft whisper of the wind through the bare branches of the cottonwood trees. Unaware of the impending doom, the Northwestern Band of Shoshone people slept peacefully in their winter village, nestled along the banks of the frozen river. The village, a collection of traditional willow dome huts, stood as a testament to the resilience and resourcefulness of the Shoshone people. They had lived in this harsh yet beautiful land for generations, their lives intrinsically intertwined with the rhythms of nature. But this day, this seemingly ordinary winter morning, would be forever etched in the annals of history as a day of unimaginable horror. It was the day of the Bear River Massacre. The Northwestern Band of Shoshone, sometimes called the Snake Indians by white settlers, were a peaceful people. They lived in harmony with their surroundings, their culture deeply rooted in the natural world around them. They were deeply connected to the land, their lives revolving around the cycles of the seasons. Each season brought its own set of activities and traditions, from planting and harvesting to hunting and gathering. For centuries, they had thrived in the Cache Valley, a fertile expanse straddling the present-day border of Utah and Idaho. This valley, with its rich soil and abundant wildlife, was the heart of their territory. Their existence was one of harmony with nature, their survival dependent on the bounty of the land and the wisdom passed down through generations. They understood the rhythms of the earth and respected the delicate balance of their ecosystem. The Shoshone were skilled hunters, fishermen, and gatherers. Their knowledge of the land and its resources was unparalleled, allowing them to thrive in a variety of environments. The men hunted deer, elk, and bison, using techniques and tools that had been perfected over generations. They were adept at tracking and understanding animal behavior, ensuring successful hunts. While the women gathered roots, berries, and nuts. They knew which plants were edible, which had medicinal properties, and how to prepare and store them for the winter months. The Bear River, teeming with salmon, provided a vital source of sustenance. Fishing was a communal activity, bringing families and groups together to share in the bounty of the river. Their lives were governed by respect for nature and a deep spiritual connection to the land that sustained them. They believed that every element of the natural world had a spirit and that they were all interconnected. Their society was built on kinship ties and a strong sense of community. They lived in extended family groups, with each member playing a vital role in the well-being of the whole. Elders were revered for their wisdom, and children were cherished. The knowledge and traditions of the Shoshone were passed down orally, from one generation to the next, ensuring the continuity of their culture. Their lives were rich in tradition, their culture vibrant with song, dance, and storytelling. These activities were not just forms of entertainment but were integral to their social and spiritual lives, reinforcing their values and beliefs. But the arrival of white settlers in the early 19th century signaled a dramatic shift in the Shoshone way of life, disrupting the delicate balance they had maintained for generations. The settlers brought new challenges and conflicts, leading to significant changes in the Shoshone's traditional ways of living. The encroachment of white settlers onto Shoshone lands brought with it a clash of cultures and a tragic misunderstanding of the Shoshone way of life. The Shoshone, with their deep connection to the land and their traditions, found it difficult to comprehend the settlers' relentless push for expansion. Settlers, driven by the allure of land and opportunity, viewed the Shoshone as obstacles to their progress. They saw the vast open spaces as a blank canvas for their dreams of prosperity, their traditional nomadic lifestyle at odds with the settlers' vision of permanent settlements and agriculture. The Shoshone's seasonal movements, which were essential for their survival, were misunderstood and often seen as aimless wandering by the settlers. This fundamental difference in worldview laid the groundwork for a series of tragic misunderstandings and escalating tensions. The settlers' inability to appreciate the Shoshone's sustainable way of living led to numerous conflicts. The discovery of gold in California in 1848 further fueled the westward migration. The promise of instant wealth attracted thousands, bringing a flood of prospectors and fortune seekers through Shoshone territory. These individuals, often single-minded in their pursuit of gold, trampled over the Shoshone lands without a second thought. These newcomers, often desperate and driven by greed, showed little regard for the Shoshone people or their claims to the land. They saw the land as theirs for the taking, ignoring the centuries-old presence of the Shoshone. They diverted water sources, hunted game to near extinction, and encroached upon sacred burial grounds. The Shoshone's way of life, which depended on these resources, was severely disrupted. As the pressure on resources intensified, so too did the friction between the Shoshone and the settlers. The competition for dwindling resources led to frequent and often violent confrontations. Raids on livestock, often driven by desperation and hunger, were met with swift and often brutal retaliation from the settlers. These raids were a means of survival for the Shoshone but were seen as acts of aggression by the settlers. The Shoshone, vastly outnumbered and outgunned, found themselves caught in a desperate struggle for survival. Their traditional weapons were no match for the settlers' firearms. They fought to protect their land, their way of life, their very existence. Despite their valiant efforts, the overwhelming force of the settlers' expansion proved to be a formidable challenge. The Shoshone's resilience and determination to preserve their culture and heritage in the face of such adversity is a testament to their enduring spirit. Their story is one of courage, resistance, and the unyielding will to survive against all odds. In the winter of 1863, news reached Colonel Patrick Edward Connor, commander of the 3rd California Infantry Regiment, of escalating conflicts between the Shoshone and settlers in the Cache Valley. The tension had been brewing for years, with settlers encroaching on Shoshone lands, leading to inevitable clashes. The settlers, driven by the promise of fertile land and new opportunities, often found themselves at odds with the native inhabitants, who had called the valley home for generations. The reports were exaggerated, fueled by fear and prejudice. Sensationalist headlines and biased accounts painted a picture of a savage enemy lurking in the wilderness, ready to strike at any moment. These stories spread like wildfire, stoking the flames of fear and anger among the settlers. Settlers accused the Shoshone of widespread attacks and painted them as ruthless savages. Tales of raids, thefts, and violence were common, though many were based on hearsay and speculation rather than fact. The settlers' growing paranoia created an atmosphere ripe for conflict. Connor, a seasoned military man known for his ruthlessness, vowed to make an example of the Shoshone and quell any further resistance to white settlement. His reputation as a fierce and unyielding leader preceded him, and he was determined to live up to it. He saw this mission as an opportunity to cement his legacy and demonstrate his unwavering commitment to the cause. Driven by a potent mix of ambition, a thirst for revenge for the death of a wagon train at the hands of a Shoshone band the previous year, and a deep-seated belief in the superiority of his race, Connor assembled a force of over 200 well-armed soldiers. These men, hardened by previous campaigns, were ready to follow Connor into the harshest conditions. They set out from their camp near Salt Lake City in the depths of winter, their destination the unsuspecting Shoshone village on the banks of the Bear River. The journey ahead was fraught with peril, but Connor's men were resolute, driven by a sense of duty and the promise of glory. The journey was arduous, the winter weather relentless. Snow and ice covered the landscape, turning the march into a grueling test of endurance. The soldiers trudged through deep snow, their breath visible in the frigid air, each step a battle against the elements. Yet Connor pushed his men forward, his resolve unwavering. He was driven by a vision of victory, a belief that this campaign would bring an end to the Shoshone threat once and for all. His determination was infectious, and his men followed him with a sense of purpose. He saw the Shoshone as an impediment to progress, a savage enemy that needed to be crushed. In his eyes, they were obstacles to the manifest destiny of the American settlers, a hindrance to the expansion of civilization into the untamed wilderness. In his mind, the upcoming attack was not merely a military campaign, but a righteous crusade to tame the wilderness and pave the way for civilization. Connor believed that by subduing the Shoshone, he was playing a crucial role in the grand narrative of American expansion, bringing order and progress to a wild and untamed land. This belief fueled his determination, making him relentless in his pursuit of victory. The unsuspecting Shoshone, unaware of the approaching threat, went about their daily routines. The women tended to their children, the men repaired their tools and weapons, and the elders shared stories around the warmth of the fire. The village, blanketed in snow, exuded an aura of tranquility, the calm before the storm. Just before dawn on January 29th, Connor's men surrounded the village. The soldiers, their breath forming clouds in the frigid air, moved silently into position, their rifles loaded and ready. They were under strict orders from Connor: show no mercy, take no prisoners. As the first rays of sunlight peeked over the horizon, Connor launched his surprise attack. The stillness of the morning was shattered by the deafening roar of gunfire. The peaceful Shoshone village was instantly transformed into a scene of chaos and carnage. The element of surprise was complete. The Shoshone, caught completely off guard, were ill-prepared for the ferocity of the assault. Many were still asleep in their wickiups when the shooting began. Those who managed to grab their weapons fought back bravely, but they were hopelessly outmatched. The soldiers, armed with repeating rifles, rained a deadly hail of bullets upon the village, the air filled with the deafening roar of gunfire, the anguished screams of the wounded and dying, and the terrified cries of children. Men were gunned down as they emerged from their homes. Women clutching babies in their arms were shot as they ran, and children were not spared from the indiscriminate slaughter. Connor's men showed no mercy. They moved through the village with ruthless efficiency, killing every Shoshone they encountered. The snow-covered ground was quickly stained crimson with the blood of the innocent. The massacre continued for hours, a relentless onslaught against a people who had little chance of defending themselves.